Hi, this is Michael Mandaville, and you're listening to Pop Culture Addicts.
Hello, guys, and welcome back to Pop Culture Addicts. This is the show that's built on fandoms, but driven by conversation. I'm Tim, your host, your fandom friend, and your guide to all things awesome. Now, maybe you've asked yourself this question, because I know I have in the past. What does it take to help bring a blockbuster movie like Taken or American History X or Havoc to the screen? Well, today, waiting for us in the green room, we have that answer. We're going to hear from a man who spent more than 2 decades making movie magic happen behind the scenes, but he's also an author as well. So we're going to talk about that. Now, our guest today is a filmmaker, producer, author, and a Hollywood veteran. Michael Mandaville has built a career spanning more than 25 years. His work has helped shape some of the films that have captivated audiences all around the world. And I mean, if you think about the movie Taken, who hasn't said to somebody, I have a very specific set of skills? I know I have. I use it at least once a week at work, but hey, it is what it is. Now, in our conversation today, we're going to dive into Michael's origin story. We're going to look at his journey through the entertainment industry, what really goes into producing a major motion picture, and maybe some of the lessons that he's learned from his decades in Hollywood as well. And maybe we'll get lucky with a cool story or two of something that's been behind the scenes. Now, if you're new here, I'll ask you to go ahead and click that like and follow button. I'd hate for you to miss out on future episodes with other cool guests. At this time, though, let's take the opportunity to welcome Michael Mandaville to Pop Culture Addicts. Welcome to the show, Michael.
Thank you very much, Tim, for having me. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm excited to have you on. So I came in contact with you through a service that we both use called Podmatch, and a podcasting friend of mine, Alex Sanfilippo, runs that. Him and his wife are the owners, the creators, the geniuses behind Podmatch. And so, you know, when he first talking to me about it, I was like, oh, it's just gonna be a bunch of other podcasters. And I've been getting some really cool guests. You, for example, are one of those cool guests that I was like, oh my God, I have to talk to this guy. And this is 1,000% the truth. And I'll be done with my fanboying here in a moment and we'll move along. I always tell people that if you're on my show, you've done something that interests me or makes me want to talk to you. And I am a huge fan of the Taken series, the trilogy of movies, and American History X scared the pants off me because I was like, wow, that's a little too scary of what humankind could be like. So there's a whole lot of stuff going on here, and I'm very excited to talk to you. But here's my first question for you, Michael, out of the chute. It's the same question I like to ask everybody, but I'm going to ask it to you in 2 parts because I see your career in 2 halves, and you know, you can correct me if I'm wrong on this, but I like to talk to each one of my guests about their origin story. I want to know what makes people tick, why it is that you do what you do, what keeps you coming back, what keeps you involved in the things that you do. So in the story of Michael Mandaville, what made you say, I want to be in the movie business?
Well, that's a good one. It really starts, I would say, with my Aunt Molly. She actually was the key inspiration to a great deal of my life. And when I was growing up, my mother at the time was ill. So she was my father's sister, and she worked at 20th Century Fox. She worked for a gentleman by the name of Darrell F. Zanuck. And that goes back to being one of the great moguls of the film industry, the Carl Laemmles, the Adolf Zucker, Darrell F. Zanuck, etc. And I don't know if you know this about him, but he actually worked at Warner Brothers and created Rin Tin Tin. And to get it, yeah. So he has a long and storied history about being in the film industry. He actually wanted to be a writer and said, well, you haven't written anything. So literally in one weekend, he wrote all these stories, had them published in a book. By Monday or Tuesday, he had actually had the book printed, went back to Warner Brothers, I believe, and said, here, I wrote these short stories, and they hired him. And so there's, yes, talk about drive. And you have to think, there was no internet, there was no Lulu printing, there was nothing else.
Right, yeah.
Get it all done in a weekend, printing, setting, mimeographing, whatever it was. Right. So she worked for him, and when my mother was ill, she would my aunt Molly, and she's in Daryl F. Zanuck's book about memos, the memos from Daryl F. Zanuck, I believe. And she would pick me up, take me to the studio, and that's kind of where I grew up. So she kept me by her side there in the office, and she was more than an assistant. She to Daryl F. Zanuck. She was his script advisor, and she really knew how the studio ran. So people were extremely deferential to her in many ways, and you'll appreciate this, Tim. Many years later, after she had passed along, I touched base with a number of her friends. Frank McCarthy, who produced Patton, Richard Zanuck, who got her into the motion picture home when she fell ill, and a number of them. And a couple of them, one of them in particular said, "Oh, yeah, your Aunt Molly, she knew everything about that studio, everything that was running at 20th Century Fox." And then he said, "And nobody messed with her." And I thought, and here I'm a kid, and this is my sweet Aunt Molly with the blue Thunderbird who introduced me to See's candy and the glory of marzipan. And I literally
Okay.
said, "Yeah," which is my favorite to this day. And I went, "Really? Oh, so I guess that Irish temper kind of paid off in some ways." She was right, and she was a very a woman in a essentially a studio had to really fight her way up. So if you think about it, in the from 1938 on,
Oh
she
yeah.
was pretty tough about all that. So she actually spoke multiple languages, knew Cary Grant, knew John Ford. I met William John Ford. I met Alfred Hitchcock, William Wellman, all these people when
Oh
I was
wow.
very, very young. And she would put me into movies. So in the movie called The Great Race with Tony Curtis, I was in the background.
Oh
Hello,
cool.
Dolly. So
Oh
it
okay.
so in a couple of others, and so it really started this origin story, to get back to circling back here, but this is the essence of it. It really started this moment of like, oh my gosh, that is a complete and utter illusion. How are you guys doing that? And the idea that you could create columns out of plywood, yet they appeared real. The idea of the back lot where I'd wander. And in those early days, I would also go to MGM, which was still here in Culver City and had its lots, I think 3, 5, and 7, or what they call the back 40, the Desilu Studios with Hogan's Heroes Prisoner of War Camp,
Oh yeah.
right? You remember that? And
Oh yeah. It's a great show.
so we would jump
I
the
saw
fence at,
nothing.
that's it, Colonel Klink. I saw nothing.
I saw nothing.
Absolutely. That was Sergeant Schultz, right?
Oh yeah. Yes.
Sergeant Schultz. You're right.
Old
And
Schultze.
so I would jump the fence at MGM or the back 40 and go play when I was a kid in there. So I kind of grew up on
Wow.
official invitation and an unofficial invitation of what I would call mild larceny, I suppose. Um, a little trespassing here or there.
A
But
little mild trespassing is good for the soul.
right, so that kind of infused with me. Well, you have to be in that, and that's where
Yeah.
it really never left me.
Yeah. It was imprinted on you.
Yes, from a very
Yeah. Very
early
much so.
age. And my Aunt Molly was very, I'd say, a bit eccentric, a bit unusual for the day. She spoke a number of languages. She was obsessed by books and written material, hence the writing part, maybe. And the idea that she knew all these very interesting people, was well respected, and she very much persevered, which is one of the
Yeah.
key elements of any kind of success is perseverance, no matter what.
Oh, for sure. And let's just take the pretty bow off of it for a second. I mean, the reality of it is, at that time and that age, that she would have had to have been a tough lady to make it through. She would have had to have persevered because that was it's still a boys club, but it was very much, even much so more back then, a boys club and hard for a woman to advance. So that really says a lot about your Aunt Molly. That's a really cool story, man.
Yeah, she was terrific. Something else, I'll tell you. You would have liked
Yeah,
her.
I bet. I think I would have. Yeah, she sounds like a hoot. I as soon as you said that, they're like, "Yo, your Aunt Molly was great." Nobody messed with her. I'm like, "Yeah, she'd be
Yes,
fun." Okay.
that's right. She
Okay. So yeah, so I mean, so that's how we got started in films. But you mentioned Molly with the books. Now, is that also what your inspiration for behind? Was Molly also involved with your wanting to become a writer because you're also an author?
Very much so, I would say, because when I had to go to the studio with her, I would invariably wander around as any kid would. I had the
Sure.
lot, and then, but at the same time, I also had to be, you had to keep me occupied because I think I was a little too curious for my own good. And some part of that is, okay, read a book. And she would give me kids' books initially, and then I'd go through them and go, what else? What else? So then she started giving me some books of more substance when you're five,
Hmm.
6, 7, 8 years old, 9 years old, whatever it was. I would get books like The Three Musketeers by Dumas,
Oh,
Robinson
nice.
Crusoe.
Yes.
So these books that just enliven the imagination, which were
Yeah.
obviously very filmic. It wasn't like getting War and Peace, as it were, but I mean, it was certainly these books where you could read and your imagination soared. And at the same time, whenever you read a book, and one of the books, let's say, for example, that I've read probably 15 times now is Shogun. And,
Okay.
what's very interesting about that is when you read the book and you read at different ages, your imagination still takes flight. They're they're a different person, but the book hasn't changed, but I've changed. So all of a sudden, you read a book when you're 20 and you look up to this, Toranaga, let's say in Shogun, or anybody,
Hmm.
Musketeers, you go, okay, I could be D'Artagnan or this. But Toranaga's a little older, a little more distant. Captain Rocheford's a little more wise. And then, of course, you get a bit older and you go, oh, that's kind of like me. Or why is he like me? So, literature has a very interesting manner of changing our perspective as we grow older to look at the characters, all the same, but all of a sudden we
Yep.
get a different angle of wisdom, I would say. So, that I thought was always very fascinating.
I love that. I love I love perspective on things, and I think that's always a really cool thing. Um, because I've had a similar experience, whether it was with films or books. Like when I was growing up, I read The Count of Monte Cristo a lot.
Oh,
Love that book.
great book. Great book.
Amazing book, and like you were talking about, is in my mind it was very cinematic. As I was reading the book, I could see everything and hear everything, and kind of envision myself. So there's the movie with Jim Caviezel, Count of
Mhm.
Monte Cristo, as well. Absolutely love that movie. It's
Great book. Great
phenomenal.
movie. Great movie.
Yeah, and so it's interesting that you said you said you read this book at this time in your life, and it was different at this time of your life. And I've had a similar experience with that, not only with Count of Monte Cristo, but I'm a massive Star Wars fan, like very, very large Star Wars fan. We don't need to go into all that right now, but it's impressive to me how certain stories, if the story is written well, and it doesn't matter when it was made, because it's going to impact you at different times and
Mhm.
in different ways. And I remember growing up, I just liked The Count of Monte Cristo because it was a good story. And then in my younger years, it was because um, you know, I was going through some things personally, relationship with my natural father and all. There's a whole lot of stuff going on there, but I looked at the issues that Dantes was having in the book, and then now as a father of three, it was at the end, realizing that you're a father and all these different feelings and emotions. And so it's kind of neat for me, for that perspective. You're talking about the books that impacted you, and that made me think of The Count of Monte Cristo and how that's um, been a bit of a perspective change for me over the years. I still love the book, I still love the movie, but for very different reasons.
Well, if you're absolutely right, because books indeed are imparting wisdom through experiential knowledge. And
Hmm.
you and I could sit here and go, well, let's talk about teleology and ontology and epistemology and get into all this vast philosophical conundrums. Go read some Heidegger or God knows what. And all of a sudden we'll go down that road and people will call in and go, hey, Tim, that was a really good podcast. I have no idea what you were talking about. And you completely and utterly lost me, and it sounded
Yeah,
interesting. And you
sounded
can
cool,
go,
but
but I have no access point whatsoever. And the
yeah.
fascinating part about stories, if you look at amongst the oldest ones, which could be Sun Tzu was telling a story, albeit it's about strategy and tactics.
Hmm.
The Bible, absolutely. The great works across the board have always told stories with wisdom because we are imparting the idea of storytelling, which is no different than you and I, Michael and Tim, sitting around the campfire telling how we took down this dinosaur for the tribe. And as you and I would go out on the hunt, we would come back and, okay, you have that dinosaur leg, kid, and we're going to tell our story. And of course, with each passing week, we get a little better at our storytelling, a little more inflamed with our own bravado. And
Right.
right, it gets bigger and bigger. And then Tim flew off the rock and did it one time, and then the next he did a somersault while he flew off the rock. And of course, they're amazed at our warrior status and ability, which of course by which we've gained some status and
Well, sure.
probably a few perks along the way with the tribe. So these are components of wisdom and daring do. They are also ones of longing. And when
Hmm.
you mesh all this emotion into a story, that's why we keep gravitating back to that structure. We have it in song, we have it in music, we have it in movies, certainly, as well as the basic elements of storytelling, the craft of individual oral tradition. We don't
Yeah.
go away from that because we get the tension, we get the moment of relief. Oh, Tim and Michael escaped. Oh my God, that dinosaur was close. And then they have a certain empathy towards, oh yeah, and
Yeah.
Tim cut himself there, and I got a rock in the head, and yeah, I mean all these things. So this is the same architecture we get by when you talk to your three children. You are giving them a story about how you do something, why you do
Yep.
something. Why are you nice to the person who's elderly at the store? Well, because
Absolutely.
pretty, I'm going to be there someday, and I want you to be nice to them and me. So, and you're a podcaster. You and I are creating a story, so it envelops the whole social
Yeah.
human nature of all of us. So it's no doubt you go back there, and you also can impart to your son. How old are your kids?
27, 24, and 19.
Oh my gosh, really? Wow.
Yeah.
Are
Yeah.
you
My
a
wife and I
grandpa
got
yet?
started. I am. I have a 2-year-old grandson.
Oh, there we
He's
go.
I am I am in deep smit. I am very smitten
I
with my grandson.
There you are. So somewhere, maybe in about 3 to 5 years, you're going to pull out a version of that Edmond Dante's Hero and start reading to him that very book. I would almost put money on it, right?
You can count on it.
Right. So
Oh, you can
it,
count on it.
it's a book that crosses generations and has for so long. If you go to the Pantheon in Paris, you can go down there into the crypt and see his tomb where he was moved from, I think, Le Père Lachaise Cemetery into the Pantheon. And when they did move him, I think it was in 2002 or three in France, in Paris, many people lined the street for his carriage passing in uniforms of the Musketeers. And you just have to sit and love that, how far
Hmm.
reaching that is to make us dress in costumes to honor him. Well, amazing, huh?
Exactly. A couple hundred years later, in fact. Yeah. That's pretty
Yes.
cool. Very cool. All right. Well, Michael, I want to ask you about this because, and I'll approach it this way. One of my former employers told me one time that the A good teacher is experience. The best teacher is failure.
Hmm.
So, in your experiences in Hollywood and as a writer, what is the best lesson that experience or failure has taught you?
There's a couple things that come to mind on that. And
Okay.
recently, I saw a video of Elon Musk, and somebody had asked him, I'm not sure what date it was, but they were interviewing
Okay.
him. And they said, "So what's the number one ingredient?" I've thought a lot about this because it impacts directly on one's perseverance and trajectory toward a goal. And they asked him, they
Hmm.
said, "So, Elon, what's the number one ingredient for success?" And of course, on the face of it, somebody might say intellect, curiosity, a number of other attributes. But he clearly said pain tolerance. And I thought, boy, now that's a very interesting one to pick. And he said, look, I know people smarter than I am. I know people that are more curious, more gifted, a whole host of things. But he said, I know somebody that was very, very smart. They had one attempt, they failed, and they went into a zone of security and safety and comfort. It's easy. And you could be still
Hmm.
successful financially. What kind of endurance have you acquired? What kind of skill set do you have in that regard? So when you have failure, it's basically like you've been taught another way that you have to select a different road, one way or the other. And that different road can mean, well, I need to acquire skills. I need to come at a different angle with the same objective. I need to, much like if you want to, and you graciously referred to Star Wars and your fanaticism therein, but you deflected going into it. And I can understand that because if you could do the same with me, it'll be World War II history. And if you are ever have insomnia, you call me. I will put you to sleep in 15 minutes, talking about the order of battle of Soviet Guards regiments or some nonsense.
Right.
But when you look at history and you look at the idea of warfare and the idea of getting a something accomplished, it's the same with film. It's the same with any very difficult goal. You have to say, well, we can't go in this way. We have to go here. Check out the terrain. What are our resources? Who's going to be able to drive through this whole thing with enthusiasm and not take no for an answer? So I think from that, from failure, you learn to say one way or the other. I'm going to go through. Human enthusiasm leads impossibility. Someone says it can't be done. You know, I'm going to do it anyway. What?
Hmm.
Are you out of your mind? Well, clearly, but that does not stop
A little
me
bit.
from right. And that touch of insanity actually goes a long way when you decline to believe other people and you are almost you have it inside you, inside your heart, inside, and the heart I think is more important than the mind. I think the
I think
heart
so.
says here's the drive for
Yep.
impossibility. So I think
Yep.
that's one thing about failures to learn. And the other is get to a place, it's kind of two parts. It's one being the
Okay.
pain tolerance, perseverance component. And the other is getting to a place. And I remember this lesson very clearly. I'd done a script, gave it to a gentleman. He read it and he goes, well, Michael, I could see it's good. I think there's a lot there. It reads a lot like a first draft. And it was a first draft. And he said to me, well, that's interesting because what you have to do is get it to the point where you could stand behind it no matter what. So you have to be relentless on yourself, pain tolerance again. And then the
Okay.
idea that when you've got to that level where you are so happy with it, truly, and you've really relentlessly tried to perfect your craft, that you can say, well, that's fair criticism, Tim, or okay, thank you very much. I'm moving on. And you are willing to take that. Some of which I could
Right.
say, Tim, of your 10 points, you made three good ones or seven. I'm going to go back and look at it. And three, no, I don't think you're right. I'm moving on. And when you could kind of get to that point of substantial character driven with your work ethic, that's where you can deflect. And I don't mean stupidly. I don't mean
No,
unwisely.
I understand what you mean.
You
Yeah.
know what I mean? Yeah.
Oh yeah. No, that makes a whole lot of sense, because I think with anything, if you're going to be successful, and whatever your modicum of success is, I think if you're going to be successful, you have to have, like you said, there has to be a level of perseverance. I'm going to do this thing,
Mhm.
and I'm going to um, be undeterred. So you have to have that stick to itiveness, that perseverance, to be able to be able to push along. So I think that's really really good advice. Okay, I like that. All right, and real quick for our listeners, if you're enjoying this conversation, don't forget to click that like and follow button. All right. So, all right, Michael. So, you, like I mentioned in the outset, you've been involved in quite a few movies, you know, and TV shows, and you're an author. You've had some opportunities for entrepreneurship and a few other things. My question for you is, how, out of all these different hats you've worn, is there one that scratches your artistic itch more than the others? Because we're never just one thing. We're always, it's not just that, oh, he's just a producer, no, he's a producer or a writer, he's, an entrepreneur, he does all these different things. But which one of those scratches the itch, so to speak, while and you find yourself coming back to?
Well, it's always been writing and one form or the other. And I would say because if one writes an essay, a novel, a play, uh, scripts, certainly, I've written, I think, 69 scripts. I've had about 14, 18, I think, hired to write or optioned, etc. A lot of spec scripts that I put out there and
Mm-hmm.
novels. But ultimately, it comes down to the use of words because when you embrace words, you embrace wider and smarter thinking. So, for example, if you tell one of your kids, well, why shouldn't I do that? And you will find different ways to express that. But every once in a while, you're going to go, oh, that you could look in their eyes and they go, oh, oh, that's why. Now you've hit the words right on the spot. And if you and I communicate well and smartly about how we're avoiding the dinosaur on the hunt there, then flank right, go 100 yards, make another right, and then hit that rock at the top, not the bottom, and then da da da. Very specific words. Now we've communicated smartly in a way, and I find that when you find the right words and get them just right, it's incredibly satisfying. Now, and particularly when you write a novel, the nice part about a novel is you really don't need a crew. I could actually accomplish that on my own and deliver it
Right.
exactly the way I'd like. Whether you like it or not is up to you.
Right.
It's certainly smart for me to be mindful of the words and the audience and shift things for a known audience.
Sure.
James Patterson, I think, does that. He's very started with marketing and worked backwards. He's obviously got his money for that one. I'm not sure how good he is as a writer, but there you go. But he certainly worked the marketing backwards. But I think there's something about having the words right and just getting them that way. And that's probably the center of what everything else springs out of, whether it's communications, individual ones, to be fun and witty, even in difficult times, making a movie, to keep a sense of humor, to gravitate towards exactitude. And if we communicate smartly, you and I could even have disagreements on what is it, pancakes or waffles rule the world. I mean, and you might be waffles, I might be pancakes, but we might make good points if we're good communicators. So the more people communicate with words, the better. So I think
Okay.
that's really the central component, chasing it down that word.
Okay. I'm French toast, by the way, just to be difficult.
a,
Uh,
a complete and utter rebel.
absolutely. Absolutely.
I
All
don't think
right.
I'm
So,
far behind on you on that anyway.
all right. So, I wasn't going to ask you this question. This was not even, but this popped up in my head because it's a question I've asked other creative minds before. And just some of the answers you've given me tonight have this question keeps popping up in my head, so obviously somebody wants me to ask it, so I think it's me. But here goes. So now you mentioned that you've written a bunch of spec scripts. You've written like 69 scripts over the time. You've written novels. You've done all these things. You've produced movies, etc. What's one project that you are extremely proud of that a lot of people either don't know a lot about or maybe have possibly overlooked that you think needs a little bit more attention, a little bit brighter light shined on it?
Oh, that's a good one, and I can tell you exactly which one that is.
Okay.
I actually wrote a novel. It's out now. It's up on Amazon. It's called Journey So Dreams May Come.
Okay.
And it, from starting the novel to finishing, took 18 years.
Oh,
And
wow.
yes, a long time. And I originally wrote the script. The book is about a young boy dying of cancer who's blind. He goes to visit his kind of screw up uncle in Los Angeles, who's an actor. And he says, I'd like to go on a trip around the world before I die. And he'll never physically make it. So the uncle gets his friends together from his theater group and they put on the sounds and the smells and the voices of a trip to Japan, China, India, Italy, France, and Ireland along the way. And the book itself did take about 18 years. And in that meantime, of course, I think I wrote, I'm trying to remember, I think 9 other novels, uh, probably a couple dozen scripts, essays, and everything else. So it's not writer's block, but it is this point of getting the words right. And that
Yeah.
is the one that really took a lot of time. And it also has in when you're in Hollywood writing a script, your influence can be other movies. If you're writing a thriller, a political thriller, a murder mystery, well, my resources tend to be, let's say, an Agatha Christie or a Da Vinci Code or something like that. So you have ready references in that regard. But when you're writing a novel meant to be hyper literary, I would say, it kind of combines a lot of the elements like 100 Years Solitude by Marquez, magical realism, the notion of some degree of John Dos Passos with this kind of flurry of what might seem non sequiturs but are little observations. And so it was really this unknown creative beast I couldn't get my handle on in a certain way, not from a lack of, I can put out a lot of words, but do the words matter and are they right for that piece, let's say?
Yeah.
And I'm very proud of it. And when it came back, it was given a good Midwest book review. And the line said, well, this book is written with such tenderness. And that is generally not a adjective ascribed to me in a number of for a
Fair.
number a number of reasons. Doing
Okay.
a line producer where you are very like drill sergeant, sergeant major,
Sure.
kind of general on the set.
Yeah.
I teach martial arts, firearms, and a whole host of other things that don't quite equate with a certain tenderness. But I think the contradiction is in some ways fitting artistically because indeed it took me a long time to get the words right. So
Yeah.
that's, and people that read it, I literally had, you'll appreciate this. I actually had given the script to this gentleman. One reason that when I wrote it, I had the script, started writing the novel, gave him the script. His name was Larry Applebaum, and he was a producer from New York on various shows, including he worked on The French Connection forever ago.
Okay.
And he talked a bit like this. Was his voice, his very like harsh voice, right? With the appropriate amount of profanity interlaced, shall we say.
But of course.
So, and I gave him the script and I said, well, Larry, we became friends in this kind of odd, playful banter. And I gave him the script and I called him and I go, "Hey, Larry, so did you read the script?" And he goes, "Yeah, I read your script." And then he said, "Yeah, I read your script and I friggin' cried like a baby." And
Nice.
to this day, I've always treasured that comment that he
Oh,
so
for sure.
enjoyed it. And so, some degree, that was a cause of like, oh, I've got something here that's more than a script. And so, I'm working on that right now to get it made on a number of levels. And
Love it.
yeah, so I hope that answers the question there, but there it
No,
is.
it does. That's a great. And I quick looked it up. So
There it is.
um
There we go.
yeah.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah. But yeah, and as you were describing it, I was like, man, that would be a really cool movie to see how that's all put together and how these people pull off. I want to read it now, so that's really cool. Okay.
and they
Yeah.
also
Excellent.
use, do you know Rube Goldberg?
Mm-hmm.
Rube Goldberg Inventions, right?
Yeah.
So, if you want to press a doorbell, there's 28 things that happen
Yeah.
when you push the button and it goes through all these things and a thing falling. So,
Yeah.
picture in that book where they would have all these Rube Goldberg type inventions to pull it off.
That
Humanity
sounds like
creative.
yeah, that sounds very fun. I like the concept of that. So A, I'm gonna read it. B, I'm hoping it turns into a movie. That'd be fun.
Absolutely.
So,
I will invite you to the premiere.
all right. I would love that. That'd be great. All right, Michael. I think that you're a perfect candidate to ask this next question and give the answer to, because of your history as both an author, a producer, and all the things all the different hats you've worn in the entertainment world. It's no small surprise anymore that artificial intelligence is everywhere. It's starting to creep into the performing arts. So I'm curious as to what your take on generative AI is and its impact on the entertainment business.
Sure. I was invited, certainly was exploring this a great deal, certainly last year a lot. Then I was invited by a friend of mine to actually explore more with Luma Labs. I became a beta tester on some of their products and had a chance to do that and really experiment with it. I started getting into it. I dived deep into it, and then I kind of stepped back and I went, okay, I really don't know much of what I'm doing. I'm kind of putting prompts in there, trying to be good
Mm-hmm.
about the prompts. And obviously, when I write so much, it's easy for me to be detailed, very much so. So I actually have taken a prompt engineering course because I thought, okay, there's got to be a structural component here to think better about it. Again, coming back and saying, how do I look at something? If
Sure.
you're somebody who does real estate, you look at a house in a certain way. If you are a person who's a medical professional, you look at a person a certain way. And the same thing applies to any kind of tactic that we want to do where we want to accomplish things. So I stepped back, gained some knowledge there, and then went back to it. And I have certainly seen some astounding results. I can say that if I had to construct a scene, World War II, sorry, I was going to get it in there somehow, Tim. But if they can't help myself, that's it.
I do the same
Um,
thing with Star Wars. It's fine.
there it is. There it is. Right. We're obsessive and psychologically pleasantly impaired by our own delusions. But there we go.
Absolutely.
But here I was thinking, how do you create landing craft on a beach in Guadalcanal? And I'm doing the math in my head. And well, the uniforms, the extras, the boats, and you have to realistically do that. I think at one scene, I was doing the math just that one day, not including the prep, was somewhere like around $400,000. But all of a
Yeah.
sudden, I'm able to do it in prompt. Now, is it a 3 second shot, a 5 second shot? What's the,
Mm-hmm.
7, 10 seconds? Uh, Now, I think that's a very interesting use of it. And how close or different is that than visual effects to some degree? It does
Okay.
depend to me. How do we get away from the human component by full feature actors, close ups that are
Mm-hmm.
AI? I hesitate to go in that direction greatly because we are removing ourselves from the experiential knowledge of, oh, I'm feeling that. I think
Right.
there is an energetic component that we get that we can't ignore, that we are part of something bigger and greater, and you can feel it. And you feel that
Yes.
connection with your children, with your grandson, with other humans in a environment of a movie. If you think about a movie, I think that artificial intelligence, we have a certain feel behind our fingers that just say, ah, that doesn't quite feel right. It's a little too antiseptic.
Yeah.
And a lot of
A little too
movies have
clean. Yeah.
a little too clean, a little too antiseptic. There's no human error that gives
Right.
us at moment of, someone looking maybe a little too much, but it's human. And we feel that. And so when it's hyper engineered, and I've seen movies where I think it was Blade Runner 2049. I go, wow, this movie was perfectly made, but I had no feeling about it, no sentiment,
Yeah.
no connectivity. And that human energy is what we look at. When you and I went to go to the theater, it's a religious experience. We're with
Very much
strangers.
so.
We're hyper focused. We are quiet and respectful. We are listening to the lecture coming off the screen. And if I can be a little romanticized about it all, here are Tim and Michael speaking behind the bonfire. And we are telling about our dinosaur chase story, which is getting bigger and better and longer, of course. So everybody's in front of us, the tribe. And guess what? As we are near a cliff area for safety, it is fire has taken us, projected our shadows up on the wall to be 50 feet tall. What is that? That's a movie theater. And that's
Yeah.
a half a million years ago, or pick a number. But that is the enthralling moment of storytelling right then and there. And I think by feeling that connectivity, that's the part I don't want to see go away with AI. It can be useful on a wide shot, on a B-24 liberators going over an island. I mean, a
Sure.
number of things that are hyper expensive, but I hesitate and want to preserve that human connectivity. Where so there's a balance I think we're going to be seeking.
Okay. I like your answer. Yeah, very much so. I that's what I'm afraid of losing as well. I want that connection to the story, to the actor on screen. Um, so and I as of yet, that has not been done with AI, and I'm afraid of losing the talent of that makes the creation. I think is what
Yes,
I'm worried about. Where I'm afraid that gentlemen such as yourself would be phased out because they can push a button and a prompt will do it for them, which that worries me. So,
I
but
agree. I agree with
all
that.
right, all right, well, very good. Michael. You've answered all my questions so far very exceptionally, admirably, some would say.
Thank you.
But I have one more question for you, and we like to call it our silly question. And based on the stories we've been telling about you and I on a dinosaur hunt all night, I think you'll like this question. Um, now,
I knew you were going to give me something along those lines. I hit it too many times on the head there, but go ahead. I stand ready, sir, with my lightsaber.
oh boy, we're going to be fast friends here, Michael. All right, so the silly question is this: Michael Mandaville, what is your favorite dinosaur?
I have to go with the Tyrannosaurus Rex. And
Okay,
I just think that
tried and true.
tried and true, and just this alpha dinosaur going through and just picking it apart. For some reason, the little tiny hands, I don't know why that kind of echoes with me, just to kind of give it enough vulnerability there to go, yeah, you should be a little nicer.
Just a smidgen, yeah.
Yeah, just a little bit nicer, maybe, because you can't really hold on to things too well. It's all in the jaws. But I think that's kind of the standby. And I think it's just so dominant and fearsome. And I can't quite forget all those moments in the original Jurassic Park.
Oh, for sure.
I
It's the
mean,
T-Rex that scared the pants off you.
that was it. That was it.
So two things about your answer and your subsequent information. Have you ever seen the movie from Disney called Meet the Robinsons?
I
It's an
have not.
animated movie.
No, I have not
Okay.
seen that.
As a T-Rex fan, I'm going to implore you to watch that, and you're going to hit a scene, and you're going to know why I think that movie's so funny. It involves a T-Rex. That's all I'm going to say, because I don't like
Okay.
spoiling things. But
Okay.
if you ever have a couple hours where you just want to put your feet up and have a good laugh with an animated show, watch Meet the Robinsons sometime.
Okay.
I would love to know your thoughts on that movie.
I will do that. I'll make a note right here.
And then secondly, have you ever seen the shirt with the T-Rex on the front of it, and it says, "I'm a warning, I'm a small arms fire instructor."
No,
and it's the T-Rex holding two little handguns like this.
I have not seen that. I got to get one of those.
Yeah, I figured you'd like that. So
that's great. I love that.
Yeah. Well, if I can find the link, I'll send it to you. But yeah,
I would appreciate that very, very much. Yeah.
Absolutely. All right. Well, Michael, I have enjoyed our conversation so much today. Thank you for being on Pop Culture Addicts. Where can my listeners and viewers go to find out more about you, your work, stuff you've got coming up?
Well, you could go to my website. And I appreciate you asking that. Thank you. And you could go to creativeexplorer-michaelmandaville.com. That's one place where you'll find my books, and occasionally I put up a little essay and that sort of thing. Join my newsletter, all that. I'm on Twitter, X, pretty active there, looking at current events and a lot of things. So that's definitely a place. I'm also on Facebook, and go there to post about writing or martial arts, visual effects, and that sort of thing as well. And my books are all up on Amazon. If anybody wants to partake there. And I'm actually was working on a new one today, a sequel to my murder mystery set in Paris. So I've been getting a couple of those things going. So yeah, more friends of mine ask me, they go, "Well, what are you doing today?" And I'm like, "Well, I'm planning a robbery. You know, I'm got a murder in hand here." And I love to say that in a conversation.
I'm planning a robbery.
Yeah, I'm planning a robbery. So un voleur de le Ponteur, peut-être.
That's fantastic. I love that.
So, yep, all available, and I really appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll make sure we'll put some links down in the show notes down below for your website, your social handles, and I'll put a link in there for your Amazon books as well, so people can go there and check out your stuff and hopefully buy a book or two from you. But I'm very honestly, I'm very much interested in the journey so dreams may come. That sounds like a really cool story, and I will send you a message of hate and when I'm done crying. So
fair enough. I look forward to it.
All right, guys. Thank you for watching and or listening here on Pop Culture Addicts. Be sure to follow Michael Mandaville on all their socials, and please, if you've enjoyed what you heard, don't forget to click that like and follow button. Now, if you're a pop culture addict like myself, please consider leaving a review on your podcast listening platform. It really does help, or just putting a comment here on our YouTube channel. So on behalf of Michael Mandaville and the rest of the gang here at Pop Culture Addicts, thank you for watching. And until next time, may the force be with you as you continue to live long and prosper. Goodbye.
Reference to any specific product or entity mentioned on this podcast does not constitute an endorsement or recommendation by Pop Culture Addicts. The views expressed by guests are their own, and their appearance on the program does not imply an endorsement of them or any entity they represent. If you have questions about this disclaimer, please contact us via email at info@pcapod.com.